Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Hello, hello. Glad to see you this Friday morning. I hope you are excited about the weekend upcoming. I know I am. It's West Tennessee Dave. We're live to you at 6:33 in the morning Central Time, Twitch land we're at right now. And if you're coming to us later, watching a VOD, whether on Twitch or YouTube, hello to you and welcome as well. Good to see you all this morning. Hope you're well. Good morning, Space E. Good morning. Good to see you. Hope you're sleeping well or just enjoying this from still resting. All right, today we're gonna try to pile through a little bit of reading here. I think some of these chapters are shorter, so we're gonna read 2 Samuel 6 through 12, and just a quick always recap of where we're at, so you kind of know where to get on. Uh, the kingdom of Israel's have been set up, and King Saul was the first king. We saw that line for a while. He is now dead, and David has shown through his actions and everything else that he was not responsible for the death of Saul. And the kingdom now has become well established with David as the ruler. Those that were still kind of loyal to Saul and his kingdom keep fading and fading away, and most of the kingdom of all of the land of Israel is following David as their king. And so, with that as the backdrop, what does a king that has the people really liking him doing these things, what does the king do? Let's find out. So, get a little water. Then David again gathered all the elite troops in Israel, 30,000 in all. He led them to Baalah of Judah, which bears the name of the Lord of Heaven's armies, who is enthroned between the cherubim. Oh, sorry. Let me start over. Then David again gathered all the elite troops in Israel, 30,000 in all. He led them to Baalah of Judah to bring back the ark of God, which bears the name of the Lord of Heaven's armies, who is enthroned between the cherubim. They placed the ark of God on the new cart and brought it from Abinadab's house, which was on a hill. Uzzah and Ahio, Abinadab's sons, were guiding the cart that carried the ark of God. Ahio walked in front of the cart. David and all the people of Israel were celebrating before the Lord, singing songs and playing all kinds of musical instruments: lyres, harps, tambourines, castanets, and cymbals. But when they arrived at the threshing floor of Nacon, the oxen stumbled, and Uzzah reached out his hand and steadied the ark of God. Then the Lord's anger aroused against Uzzah, and God struck him dead because of this. So Uzzah died right there beside the ark of God. David was angry because the Lord's anger had burst out against Uzzah. He named the place Perez Uzzah, which means to burst out against Uzzah, and it is still called that today. Good morning, Estibla. Welcome. David was now afraid of the Lord, and he asked, "How can I ever bring the ark of the Lord back into my care?" So David decided not to move the ark of the Lord into the city of David. Instead, he took it to the house of Obed-Edom of Gath. The ark of the Lord remained there in Obed-Edom's house for 3 months, and the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and his entire household. Then King David was told, "The Lord has blessed Obed-Edom's household and everything he has because of the ark of God." So David went there and brought the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with a great celebration. After the men who were carrying the ark of the Lord had gone 6 steps, David sacrificed a bull and fattened calf. And David danced before the Lord with all his might, wearing a priestly garment. So David and all of the people of Israel brought the ark of the Lord with shouts of joy and the blowing of ram's horns. But as the ark of the Lord entered the city of David, Michal, the daughter of Saul, looked down from her window. When she saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she was filled with contempt for him. They brought the ark of the Lord and set it in its place inside a special tent David had prepared for it. And David sacrificed burnt offerings and peace offerings to the Lord. When he had finished his sacrifices, David blessed the people in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies. Then he gave every Israelite man and woman in the crowd a loaf of bread, a cake of dates, and a cake of raisins. Then all the people returned to their homes. When David returned home to bless his own family, Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet him. She said in disgust, "How distinguished the king of Israel looked today, shamelessly exposing himself to the servant girls like any vulgar person might do." David retorted to Michal, "I was dancing before the Lord, who chose me above your father and all his family. He appointed me as the leader of Israel, the people of the Lord. So I celebrate before the Lord. Yes, I am willing to look even more foolish than this, even to be humiliated in my own eyes. But those servant girls you mentioned will indeed think I am distinguished." So Michal, the daughter of Saul, remained childless throughout her entire life. When King David was settled in his palace and the Lord had given him rest from all the surrounding enemies, the king summoned Nathan the prophet. "Look," David said, "I am living in a beautiful cedar palace, but the ark of God is out there in a tent." Nathan replied to the king, "Go ahead and do whatever you have in mind, for the Lord is with you." But that same night the Lord said to Nathan, "Go and tell my servant David, this is what the Lord has declared. Are you the one to build a house for me to live in? I've never lived in a house from the day I brought the Israelites out of Egypt until this very day. I have always moved from one place to another, with a tent and a tabernacle as my dwelling. Yet no matter where I have gone with the Israelites, I have never once complained to Israel's tribal leaders, the shepherds of my people Israel. I have never asked them, 'Why haven't you built me a beautiful cedar house?' Now, go and say to my servant David, 'This is what the Lord of heaven's armies has declared. I took you from tending sheep in the pasture and selected you to be the leader of my people, Israel. I have been with you wherever you have gone, and I have destroyed all your enemies before your eyes. Now I will make your name as famous as anyone who has ever lived on the earth. And I will provide a homeland for my people, planting them in a secure place where they will never be disturbed. Evil nations won't oppress them as they have done in the past, starting from the time I appointed judges to rule my people, Israel, and I will give you rest from all your enemies. Furthermore, the Lord declares that he will make a house for you, a dynasty of kings. For when you die and are buried with your ancestors, I will raise up one of your descendants, your own offspring, and I will make his kingdom strong. He is the one who will build a house, a temple for my name, and I will secure his royal throne forever. I will be his father, and he will be my son. If he sins, I will correct and discipline him with the rod like any father would do. But my favor will not be taken from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I removed from your sight. Your house and your kingdom will continue before me for all time, and your throne will be secure forever." So Nathan went back to David and told him everything the Lord had said in this vision. Then King David went in and sat before the Lord and prayed, "Who am I, O sovereign Lord? And what is my family, that you have brought me this far? And now, sovereign Lord, in addition to everything else, you speak of giving your servant a lasting dynasty. Do you deal with everyone this way, O sovereign Lord? What more can I say to you? You know what your servant is really like, sovereign Lord. Because of your promise and according to your will, you have done all these great things, and you have made them known to your servant. How great are you, O sovereign Lord! There is no one like you. We have never even heard of another God like you. What other nation on earth is like your people, Israel? What other nation, O God, have you redeemed from slavery to be your own people? You made a great name for yourself when you redeemed your people from Egypt. You performed awesome miracles and drove out the nations and gods that stood in their way. You made Israel your very own people forever, and you, O Lord, became their God. And now, O Lord God, I am your servant. Do as you have promised concerning me and my family. Confirm it as a promise that will last forever. And may your name be honored forever, so that everyone will say, 'The Lord of heaven's armies is God over Israel.' and may the house of your servant David continue before you forever. O Lord of heaven's armies, God of Israel, I have been bold enough to pray this prayer to you because you have revealed all this to your servant, saying, I will build a house for you, a dynasty of kings. For you are God, O sovereign Lord. Your words are truth, and you have promised these good things to your servant. And now may it please you to bless the house of your servant, so that it may continue before you forever. For you have spoken, and when you grant a blessing to your servant, O sovereign Lord, it is an eternal blessing. After this, David defeated and subdued the Philistines by conquering Gath, their largest town. David also conquered the land of Moab. He made the people lie down on the ground in a row, and he measured them off in groups with a length of rope. He measured off 2 groups to be executed, for every 1 group to be spared. The Moabites who were spared became David's subjects and paid him tribute money. David also destroyed the forces of Hadadezer, son of Rehob, king of Zobah, when Hadadezer marched out to strengthen his control along the Euphrates River. David captured 1,000 chariots, 7,000 charioteers, and 20,000 foot soldiers. He crippled all the horses except enough for 100 chariots. When Arameans from Damascus arrived to help King Hadadezer, David killed 22,000 of them. Then he placed several army garrisons in Damascus, the Aramean capital, and the Arameans became David's subjects and paid him tribute money. So the Lord made David victorious wherever he went. David brought the gold shields of Hadadezer's officers to Jerusalem, along with the large amounts of bronze from Hadadezer's towns of Tabah and Beriothah. When King Toi of Hamath heard that David had destroyed the entire army of Hadadezer, he sent his son Joram to congratulate King David for his successful campaign. Hadadezer and Toi had been enemies and were often at war. Joram presented David with many gifts of silver, gold, and bronze. King David dedicated all these gifts to the Lord, as he did with the silver and gold from the other nations he defeated. From Edom, Moab, Ammon, Philistia, and Amalek, and from Hadadezer, son of Rehob, king of Zobah. So David became even more famous when he returned from destroying the 18,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt. He placed army garrisons throughout Edom, and all the Edomites became David's subjects. In fact, the Lord made David victorious wherever he went. So David reigned over all of Israel and did what was just and right for all his people. Joab, son of Zeruiah, was commander of the army. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was the royal historian. Zadok, son of Ahitub, and Ahimelech, son of Abiathar, were the priests. Serahiah was the court secretary. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was captain of the king's bodyguard. And David's sons served as priestly leaders. One day, David asked, is anyone in Saul's family still alive? Anyone to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake? He summoned a man named Ziba, who had been one of Saul's servants. Are you Ziba? The king asked. Yes, sir, I am, Ziba replied. The king then asked him, is anyone still alive from Saul's family? If so, I want to show God's kindness to them. Ziba replied, yes, one of Jonathan's sons is still alive. He is crippled in both feet. Where is he? The king asked. In Lodabar, Ziba told him, at the home of Machir, son of Amiel. So David sent for him and brought him from Machir's home. His name was Mephibosheth. He was Jonathan's son and Saul's grandson. When he came to David, he bowed low to the ground in deep respect. David said, greetings, Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth replied, I am your servant. Don't be afraid, David said. I intend to show kindness to you because of my promise to your father Jonathan. I will give you all the property that once belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you will eat here with me at the king's table. Mephibosheth bowed respectfully and exclaimed, who is your servant that you should show such kindness to a dead dog like me? Then the king summoned Saul's servant Ziba and said, I have given your master's grandson everything that belonged to Saul and his family. You and your sons and servants are to farm the land for him to produce food for your master's household. But Mephibosheth, your master's grandson, will eat here at my table. Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Ziba replied, "Yes, my lord the king, I am your servant, and I will do all you have commanded." And from that time on, Mephibosheth ate regularly at David's table, like one of the king's own sons. Mephibosheth had a young son named Micah. From then on, all of the members of Ziba's household were Mephibosheth's servants, and Mephibosheth, who was crippled in both feet, lived in Jerusalem and ate regularly at the king's table. Sometime after this, King Nahash of the Ammonites died, and his son Hanun became king. David said, "I'm going to show loyalty to Hanun, just as his father Nahash was always loyal to me." So David sent ambassadors to express sympathy to Hanun about his father's death. But when David's ambassadors arrived in the land of Ammon, the Ammonite commander said to Hanun, their master, "Do you really think these men are coming here to honor your father?" "No. David has sent them to spy out the city so they can come in and conquer it." So Hanun seized David's ambassadors and shaved off half of each man's beard, cut off their robes at the buttocks, and sent them back to David in shame. Good morning. Hello there, Sean. Welcome. When David heard what had happened, he sent messengers to tell them, "Stay at Jericho until your beards grow out, and then come back," for they felt deep shame because of their appearance. When the people of Ammon realized how seriously they had angered David, they sent and hired 20,000 Aramean foot soldiers from the lands of Beth Rehob and Zorba, 1,000 from the king of Maacah, and 12,000 from the land of Tob. When David heard about this, he sent Joab and all his warriors to fight them. The Ammonite troops came out and drew up their battle lines at the entrance of the city gate, while the Arameans from Zobah and Rehob and the men of Tob and Maacah positioned themselves to fight in the open fields. When Joab saw that he would have to fight on both the front and the rear, he chose some of Israel's elite troops and placed them under his personal command to fight the Arameans in the field. He left the rest of the army under the command of his brother Abishai, who was to attack the Ammonites. "If the Arameans are too strong for me, then come over and help me," Joab told his brother. "And if the Ammonites are too strong for you, I will come and help you. Be courageous. Let us fight bravely for our people and the cities of our God. May the Lord's will be done." When Joab and his troops attacked, the Arameans began to run away. And when the Ammonites saw the Arameans running away, they ran from Abishai and retreated into the city. After the battle was over, Joab returned to Jerusalem. The Arameans now realized that they were no match for Israel, so when they regrouped, they were joined by additional Aramean troops, summoned by Hadadezer from the other side of the Euphrates River. These troops arrived at Halam under the command of Shobach, the commander of Hadadezer's forces. Congratulations. Well done, John. When David heard that what was happening, he mobilized all Israel, crossed the Jordan River, and led the army to Halam. The Arameans positioned themselves in battle formation and fought against David. But again, the Arameans fled from the Israelites. This time, David's forces killed 700 chariots and 40,000 foot soldiers, including Shobach, the commander of their army. When all the kings allied with Hadadezer saw that they had been defeated by Israel, they surrendered to Israel and became their subjects. After that, the Arameans were afraid to help the Ammonites. In the spring of the year, when kings normally go out to war, David sent Joab and the Israeli army to fight the Ammonites. They destroyed the Ammonite army and laid siege to the city of Rabbah near David. However, David stayed behind in Jerusalem. Late one afternoon, after his midday rest, David got out of bed and he was walking on the roof of the palace. And he looked out over the city. He noticed a woman of unusual beauty taking a bath. He sent someone to find out who she was, and he was told, "She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Then David sent messengers to get her, and when she came to the palace, he slept with her. She had just completed the purification rites after having her menstrual period. Then she returned home. Later, when Bathsheba discovered that she was pregnant, she sent David a message saying, "I'm pregnant." Then David sent word to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." So Joab sent him to David. When Uriah arrived, David asked him how Joab and the army were getting along and how the war was progressing. Then he told Uriah, "Go on home and relax." David even sent a gift to Uriah after he had left the palace. But Uriah didn't go home. He slept that night at the palace entrance with the king's palace guard. When David heard that Uriah had not gone home, he summoned him and asked, "What's the matter? Why didn't you go home last night after being away for so long?" Uriah replied, the ark and the armies of Israel and Judah are living in tents, and Joab and my master's men are camping in open fields. How could I go home to wine and dine and sleep with my wife? I swear that I would never do such a thing." "Well, stay here today," David told him, "and tomorrow you may return to the army." So Uriah stayed in Jerusalem that day and the next. Then David invited him to dinner and got him drunk. But even then he couldn't get Uriah to go home to his wife. Again he slept at the palace entrance with the king's palace guard. So the next morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and gave it to Uriah to deliver. The letter instructed Joab, "Station Uriah on the front lines where the battle is fiercest, then pull back so that he will be killed." So Joab assigned Uriah to the spot close to the city wall where he knew the enemy's strongest men were fighting. And when the enemy soldiers came out of the city to fight, Uriah the Hittite was killed along with several other Israelite soldiers. Then Joab sent a battle report to David, and he told his messenger, "Report all the news of the battle to the king." But he might get angry and ask, "Why did the troops get so close to the city? Didn't they know there would be shooting from the walls? Wasn't Abimelech, son of Gideon, killed at Thebez by a woman who threw a millstone down on him from the wall? Why would you get so close to the wall?" Then tell him, "Uriah the Hittite was killed too." So the messenger went to Jerusalem and gave a complete report to David. "The enemy came out against us in the open fields," he said, "and as we chased them back to the city gate, the archers on the wall shot arrows at us. Some of the king's men were killed, including Uriah the Hittite." We'll tell Joab not to be discouraged," David said. "The sword devours this one today and that one tomorrow. Fight harder next time and conquer the city." When Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. When the period of mourning was over, David sent for her and brought her to the palace, and she became one of his wives. Then she gave birth to a son, but the Lord was displeased with what David had done. So the Lord sent Nathan the prophet to tell David the story. There were two men in a certain town. One was rich and one was poor. The rich man owned a great many sheep and cattle. The poor man owned nothing but one little lamb he had bought. He raised that little lamb, and it grew up with his children. It ate from the man's own plate and drank from his cup. He cuddled it in his arms like a baby daughter. One day a guest arrived at the home of the rich man, but instead of killing an animal from his own flock or herd, he took the poor man's lamb and killed it and prepared it for his guest. David was furious. "As surely as the Lord lives," he vowed, "any man who would do such a thing deserves to die. He must repay 4 lambs to the poor man for the one he stole and for having no pity." Then Nathan said to David, "You are that man. The Lord, the God of Israel, says, I anointed you king of Israel and saved you from the power of Saul. I gave you your master's house and his wives and the kingdoms of Israel and Judah. And if that had not been enough, I would have given you much, much more. Why then have you despised the word of the Lord and done this horrible deed? For you have murdered Uriah the Hittite with the sword of the Ammonites and stolen his wife. From this time on, your family will live by the sword because you have despised me by taking Uriah's wife to be your own. This is what the Lord says. Because of what you have done, I will cause your own household to rebel against you. I will give your wives to another man before your very eyes, and he will go to bed with them in public view. You did it secretly, but I will make this happen to you openly in the sight of all of Israel." Then David confessed to Nathan, "I have sinned against the Lord." Nathan replied, "Yes, but the Lord has forgiven you, and you won't die for this sin. Nevertheless, because you have shown utter contempt for the word of the Lord by doing this, your child will die." After Nathan returned to his home, the Lord sent a deadly illness to the child of David and Uriah's wife. David begged God to spare the child. He went without food and lay all night on the bare ground. The elders of his household pleaded with him to get up and eat with them, but he refused. Then on the seventh day the child died. David's advisers were afraid to tell him. He wouldn't listen to reason while the child was ill, they said. What drastic thing will he do when we tell him the child is dead? When David saw them whispering, he realized what had happened. Is the child dead? He asked them. Yes, they replied, he is dead. Then David got up from the ground, washed himself, put on lotion, and changed his clothes. He went to the tabernacle and worshipped the Lord. After that, he returned to the palace and was served food and ate. His advisers were amazed. We don't understand you, they told him. While the child was still living, you wept and refused to eat. But now that the child is dead, you have stopped your mourning and are eating again? David replied, I fasted and I wept while the child was alive, for I said, perhaps the Lord will be gracious to me and let the child live. But why should I fast when he is dead? Can I bring him back again? I will go to him one day, but he cannot return to me. Then David comforted Bathsheba his wife and slept with her. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son, and David named him Solomon. The Lord loved the child and sent word through Nathan the prophet that they should name him Jedediah, which means beloved of the Lord, as the Lord had commanded. Meanwhile, Joab was fighting against Rabbah, the capital of Ammon, and he captured the royal fortifications. Joab sent messengers to tell David, I have fought against Rabbah and captured its water supply. Now bring the rest of the army and capture the city. Otherwise, I will capture it and get credit for the victory. So David gathered the rest of the army and went to Rabbah, and he fought against it and captured it. David removed the crown from the king's head, and it was placed on his own head. The crown was made of gold and set with gems, and it weighed 75 pounds. David took a vast amount of plunder from the city. He also made slaves of the people of Rabbah and forced them to labor with saws, iron picks, and iron axes, and to work in the brick kilns. That is how he dealt with the people of all the Ammonite towns. Then David and all the army returned to Jerusalem. Okay, that is where we stop for today. Thank you guys for being here. Oh, let me stretch for a second. Okay, so we have a couple of kind of narratives and themes here in the storylines. First, we have, as I said, David is establishing his kingdom. He's doing very well with that. And the first thing he really wants to do is bring the Ark of God back to the city where he lives, because it's somewhere else. And so he kind of goes about doing that, but they didn't do it in a way that was prescribed in the law. So there were rules. There was a book that we really skipped over back in the early days called what's the book called? Levites? Is it called the Levitical? Well, why can't I think of it? So you got Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus. Okay, we read like 2 chapters in the book of Leviticus. Leviticus is basically the book that describes all the laws that the Levites were supposed to follow. And the Levites were the ones that were supposed to carry the Ark of God, nobody else. And they were supposed to carry it. They weren't supposed to put it on a cart. They weren't supposed to do all these things. So David kind of didn't really know this. The Ark hadn't moved in a long time because it was stuck at somebody's place, basically since the days that it came back from the Philistine territory. It basically stopped at this guy's house in I don't remember where it was. So then after they tried their cart experiment, they left it at Obed-Edom's house, and Obed-Edom's blessed. And so people are saying that, and David's like, I still want it back here, right? Because in those days, they believed the presence of the Lord was right on top of the Ark of the Covenant. There were 2 winged cherubims that were like this, and they basically were bowed down in worship. And between there, they believed that God was present and spoke to them. So David was like, I want this near me. And so eventually he finds a way. He starts dancing. One of his wives, Michal, which was Saul's daughter, just sees him, and David is just having the time of his life. He's kind of not wearing many clothes. Okay? And this is like hard to kind of maybe comprehend in our storyline. Okay? And we don't know this per se, but I'm not sure that people back in that day wore underwear. Okay? I think a lot of them wore long robes a lot of times, and so they didn't wear underwear. They kind of just let everything kind of air out when they walked a little bit, but they were supposed to kind of not let that part of them be exposed. But if you wear a robe with no underwear, and even if it's tied at the waist a little bit, if you start dancing, the thing is, you're going to expose yourself, whether a male or female, right? Like, there's just no way for it to not, like, if you really get into your dancing, there's probably no way not to expose yourself in your lower extremities, if you will. And so this is what Michael's so mad about. It's like, oh, look at the king just like flashing the onlookers, and especially the young girls around. And she was mad. Like, she's the king's wife. It's like, I mean, he already has a number of wives, and like, she's thinking, well, you're flashing yourself. You're basically gonna be about like trying to seduce more women. Like, how many more wives do you need, man? Probably she's not getting her fair share, because if you have like 30 wives, 40 wives, you can't sleep with them all every night. Or, whatever you think is the right amount of time to have sex with them. So she's jealous, and we see what happens with jealousy. And David's like, look, I didn't care. I don't care how foolish I look. I don't care if my stuff hangs out when I'm dancing before the Lord. I'm dancing before the Lord. Okay, and this is weird stuff to talk about, right? This is weird stuff to talk about. But David's kind of showing his heart that, look, I don't care what others really think. When he's in the presence of the Lord and when he's worshiping God, he doesn't care. He doesn't care if he's naked and people see him. He doesn't care. If that's what he feels like God wants him to do, he just does it. He was dancing with all his might. He was just caught up in worship, and whatever happens, happens. And how people respond is how they respond. And so he's like, look, your response is out of jealousy and anger and all these other things. And we've gone over this at length at different things, and we're going to go over it again in a minute. What does jealousy do? Like, how many times have we seen in the Bible stories so far that jealousy produces good things? Not many, huh? Not many. In fact, jealousy can be stated as another thing that is one of the 10 commandments. It says, do not covet. When you're jealous, you start coveting. You start wanting something that somebody else has, whether it's an actual physical thing, or now it's like the fact that David can just worship totally unhindered. Nothing stops him. Okay? All right, so let's fast forward. David now has the Ark of God there. He set up this like probably makeshift tent for it, and he's looking at it thinking and knowing in his heart, God is bigger than I am. God is more important than I am. I have a massive, huge house that I live in, and God's in this, he's in a tent. The tent is never going to be as good, glorious, and big as a house that I'm living in. I mean, The reason most of us live in homes and not tents these days is because it's more it's better, it's more comfortable and all these things to live in a home in today's society than in a tent. We sometimes go and take a tent, go camping to get away from it, but for the most part we like to live in our homes. And David's seeing this and like, this can't be right. This can't be the way it's going to be. I feel like I'm honoring myself more than God. And he says this to Nathan, and Nathan the prophet's like, man, you basically do most things right. Just do whatever's on your mind. But God corrects Nathan. So here's the first like slight misstep, but not in necessarily a bad way. But Nathan gets rebuked here by God to some extent. God says to David, "Did I ask you? Did we have a conversation about this? Just because you have ideas doesn't mean that you get to do all your ideas. And I didn't ask. I didn't ask to be in a house. I've always been in a tent. I'm happy with it. Did I complain? Did you hear me complaining? Hey, man, you're in a house. I'm in a tent. Did you hear God complaining? He didn't complain. So what's the deal? Why do you think, like, why are you having these thoughts?" But he still honors David a little bit and says, "But look, you're not the guy who's going to build this house that you think of. I'll let your son do it, but you're not going to do it. And not only that, your heart is still good. Like, your heart was to honor me. Like, God sees that and says, I see that you wanted to honor me with this and make me more revered than you are, which is truly what sets David apart as a man after God's own heart. He sets God above everything else, and he tries to set God above himself as well. And so he's like, look, because of this, I'm going to set up a dynasty. Your family line is going to have this dynasty. This kingdom will eventually rule forever, and your son will build the house. So, but it's not going to be you. But your heart wasn't bad, and so I'm going to honor that. God's like, I didn't ask for it, but I will honor it, but just not with you. And David doesn't get into a hissy fit. He doesn't get jealous. In fact, he's like, wow, God spoke this amazing message to me. And he's like, okay. Like, God sees my heart to honor him. He acknowledges it. He says, I can't do it. And I'm okay with that. But he's looking beyond his own life. He's like, look, he's like, man, he picked my family and now I'm good. That's amazing. Like, he's enthralled with when God speaks and speaks something to him that is good and glorious news. Okay. So fast forward just a little bit in the story. So he's been winning battles, he's establishing his kingdom. He's making treaties with people. You see him take out different things. Like, he is really establishing the kingdom well. And then now we get into this moment where they go out to war normally, but David doesn't go with them for whatever reason. We don't know. And he notices a beautiful woman on the house, like some housetop. Well, he's on the housetop. I don't exactly know where she is. Maybe she's on a housetop. I don't know if that's where they took baths or just noticed her somewhere taking a bath. He noticed just an absolutely stunningly beautiful woman, and because he's the king, he basically can have anything he wants. So they ask what it is. Eventually, he brings her over, and, the king gets what he wants. That's just the way it is. Bathsheba kind of knows the deal. If you don't give the king what they want, like, your life basically can be over. So, this is just the way of kings, right? And this is one of the reasons God said, let's not have a kingdom. But they're like, oh, we still want kings, regardless of if these kinds of things happen. Anyway, so David took her, and she became pregnant, and now David goes into cover-up mode. And this is where we have to look at the mirror. David realizes he's kind of done something wrong, and he's trying to just skirt the thing under the rug. And man, how often do we do that? How often do we skirt something under the rug when we do it wrong? In this case, David tries to make something happen where the actual husband of this woman, Bathsheba, will come and sleep with her. But this guy is like, look, man, you know the rules of war. When we're at war, there's kind of a rule that you don't sleep with the women. That's the rules they had. Don't sleep with women during war. And they're at war. I've been at war. And yeah, you took me off the front line, but all my brothers and family and everyone else that's out there fighting the war is still fighting. I'm not sleeping with her. Like, if you want me to party with you, cool. I can't tell the king no, but he can't say it out loud. But this guy says, I won't go sleep with my wife. And so David can't cover it up that way, so he basically has him executed in a way that looks like it's not an execution. And God is displeased with this. David sinned, he's covering it up with, and this is what happens when we start the wrong journey and then we try to cover it up. We just add more and more and more baggage and dumb stuff on it. And here it is. David's doing that today, and this results in the death of the baby that was born, as well as the death of Uriah the Hittite. So we just see that, and then we see Nathan come and confront him on this, and now God has given him, beyond just the death of this son, we see that God has given him some prophetic words that things aren't going to be well in your family anymore because of this. You really did something absolutely atrocious here. But just like with King Saul, he's like, I'm not taking away my promises I just made to you. David, when he gets confronted by Nathan, realizes his ways and is like, man, I'm sorry, I've done the wrong thing. Like, he admits it, even though he didn't admit it at first. He's like, you know what, I did the wrong thing, but there's still going to be consequences. And that is a tough lesson. Like, but just everyone's lived life long enough that when we do the wrong thing and we try to cover it up, eventually we kind of get caught. Things catch up to us. We can't keep secrets forever and be living an okay life. It never works out. It never works out. And we're going to see over the course of time, David had set up the kingdom so well. It's not like David never had any mishaps. We saw that at the beginning a little bit with the carrying of the ark. And we saw that with trying to kill Nabal, and we see somebody stop him. But in this case, nobody stops David from sleeping with Bathsheba. And we're going to see how this starts to kind of unravel some of what has been established in the kingdom. And David's done hundreds and hundreds of things well, but man, when you get one thing wrong, one thing that's really rough and wrong here, you're going to see how it really unravels your life sometimes. Okay? It's not necessarily the death nail, but it's going to sometimes they're going to have lasting effects. And so that's the story we're in right here. This is a tough story. We're going to see what happens because of it. And I'm not going to give you any more than that, but yeah, it's a moment in time to kind of reflect on our own lives, to say, when we hear this story, it should be like Nathan the prophet to us. If there's something that we're deceptively doing or trying to cover up, we have to just accept it. We have to accept the fact that we did wrong and repent and say, okay, I did wrong. But at the end of the day, David said he did wrong, and he knows that, because what he cares about, what David cares about most, this is the most important thing, is not that our lives are manicured and well established and the kingdom is perfect, but that we have God. That God doesn't abandon us. That's the most important thing. And so, as long as he has that, that's the most important thing. He stays with it and says, that's what we want. And because of that, okay, I'll deal with the consequences of life at that point, of whatever happens. And so we're going to see these consequences, and we'll see how David has to respond going forward because of this choice. Okay. And the same would be true with us. Okay? We might think that our cover-ups are secure in everything else. But if we lose God with the cover-up, we've lost everything. We've lost everything. That's what matters most. So, hard lesson to kind of just think about and take, but don't lose everything. Don't lose what matters, what's eternal in nature. God is eternal. What he promises is eternal. What we can do in this life is very temporary. So, let's just hold on to that today. All right? All right, that's where I'm going to end it. I hope you guys are well. I hope you have a good Friday, a good weekend. I will be back with you guys Sunday for the next part of the journey of the story of David here, and how this story unravels and goes forward from here. And yeah, thanks for being here. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. I love you all. It's always a pleasure to have you guys here. Good luck on the felts today. Good luck in your work. Good luck in everything that you do. And hopefully you get to enjoy some of this like late spring, early summer weather. Right now it's raining here where I'm at. I think it's raining in a lot of places, but yeah, thanks for being here. Really appreciate you guys. All right, I will talk to you soon.